afternoon and welcome to the San Mateo Arboretum Society's hybrid seminar, Gardening Safety, Tools and Tips as We Age, with Stu Dalton. The program will be recorded and the link to the recording and evaluation form will be sent to you within a few days. Before we start, a little information about what is happening at the Arboretum Society. Our nursery in San Mateo Central Park is open Saturdays and Sundays from noon to 3 p.m. We have a wide variety of plants, many perennials, orchids, cactus, succulents, natives, and more. We accept donations of plants and cuttings, which are cared for by our volunteers and then put on sale. Payment is by credit or debit card, Apple or Google Pay, no cash is accepted. The nursery may occasionally be closed, so check our website, sanmateoarboretum.org, or call us for updated information. While you're in Central Park, visit our newly renovated fairy garden, the sun and shade demonstration gardens, the butterfly hummingbird garden, and the rose garden. All these gardens are maintained by Arboretum Society volunteers. Now, let's get on with the program. We are so pleased to have Stu Dalton here today. He has supported the Arboretum Society for many years. In addition to this program, he has given many programs on rose care and propagation. He is a master gardener and a consulting Rosarian and very active in, that's probably an understatement, in the Peninsula Rose Society.
Yeah,
He will answer your questions during the program. For those viewing on Zoom, submit your questions by clicking on the chat box icon at the bottom of your screen. Welcome, Stu.
Thank you, Susan. I'm getting over a cold, so I hope I don't cough on everybody very often. Again, I slightly titled the thing differently, Gardening as We Age. And that's the sort of the theme, but it's tools, tips, and techniques. And you can see that you can stay happy when you're gardening, especially if you grow the right vegetables over on the left-hand side of the thing. Those are all from my garden. The broccoli is the mustache on it. I've been gardening since my dad said when I was 10, it's a long time ago, my dad said, we're going to go over and prune the neighbor's roses. That was the imperial weed. I went over with him and he said, you can prune, I'll tell you how. So that was one of my first, and they were gardeners and farmers going back 150 years, etc. In the family. If you, I won't show anything from my image right now. Just about when I get to 4 or 5 slides into the presentation, I'll show you some things that are here. The nice thing about this one is I get to do a demo and show you some of the things that are in the presentation. So next slide. It can help you live longer, literally. If you have seen the Blue Zone documentaries, they talk about places like Okinawa, where everybody has a garden. And the garden is something that can help you live longer. How? Last year, after I'd given my first one on ergonomics, I modified it because there was an LA Times article talking about the factors that will help you live longer. And next slide. Not that one. One before. Yeah, that one. Stress relief. For me, getting out in the garden is stress relief. For many people, I think it is. During the pandemic, it was a real relief because you were cooped up in the house all the time. And we actually grew our garden organization doing Zooms during the pandemic. It's calming. And guess what? You get to do something and see results, even if it's only taking out a weed, or if it's planting something, you see future results. And so it can be very calming to do that. And it has a purpose. I'm growing fruit for my table. I'm growing vegetables. I'm growing roses for my passion. I have 250 roses and I grow about 100 from propagation every year and sell them at the Peninsula Rose Society charity. And then it's moderate exercise, and that's when the LA Times article came out, it talked about this. It said there are two things that they specifically mentioned. Now, any moderate exercise would work, but it's not weightlifting or jogging. It was walking and gardening. Those are the two things they mentioned. And there are many things that can stimulate that. Lifting and running a wheelbarrow is one thing. Running a hoe, working a hoe is another. Raking, lifting and moving things. All of those things work different muscle groups. So it's moderate exercise. I think it's very rewarding. I answer questions on it all the time, and I enjoy that. I make custom propagations for people that want them, and that's great. I get people started in gardening, quite a few that have been doing it for 30, 40 years, and in roses particularly. Things get harder as we age. Balance. I'm not very good at balancing on one leg anymore. I have two not fake, titanium knees. I have a rotator cuff repair. I have some things in my hands for trigger finger and etc. But the knees, when you get rid of the real knees, you lose your ACLs and you don't have the stability anymore. That's my excuse for not trying to balance on one leg very much. But lifting, twisting, and when you do it, I could just pick this up, and then you're twisting and doing it. Digging. We all know about digging. I'm going to show you a special implement that can help on some kinds of digging, not just a regular shovel. Kneeling. And I'm going to show an implement that helps on kneeling and getting up. That's one of the biggies, and I'll repeat it. And walking on uneven ground. Yeah, I designed my yard with some concrete and some good stepping stones, but I have a lot of it that's uneven. And a lot of people put mulch on their pathways. Well, that may keep the weeds down, but it also becomes an uneven ground. So uneven is something we'll talk about. So safety. This does have the word safety in the one that was advertised. But the big thing is don't trip. Don't trip. And if you do, how are you going to get up? And if you hurt yourself, we'll talk about this. How are you going to deal with it? One of the big things you can do is have your phone and or watch, if you have one that connects to your phone, with you at all times. I have it in the garden at all times. Every now and then it will tell me, you're walking unsteadily, you may trip. That's one of the more modern versions of the watch. And if it thinks I was pounding on something and it thinks I fell because of the sudden deceleration, I almost would do it with this. But it will say, did you fall? And you have a choice. No. Or, I fell, but I'm okay. Or, no response. Or, or you can call help and you can have separate numbers. Or if there's no response, it'll call for you, the emergency number. And there are a lot of things like that. But I really appreciate this, especially when I'm if I trip, and it has happened, but it doesn't happen often because I try to live by what I'm talking about. Easy does it. Techniques. We're going to talk about some of the things that are easier with some of the tools and things that I brought to show you. I have a little arthritis in the hand. I'll show you some ideas on how to make your pruning easier, and even something they use in the vineyards there. That's that monster-looking cutting implement there. That's Pelco blades, best blades there are in the world, in my opinion. And it has a lot of mechanics that make it very expensive. So unless you're doing vineyards for a couple hundred roses, you may not need this, but you might want to use some of the other things that I'm going to show you. Techniques, tools, and physical limits, especially physical limits on getting down and back up. Next slide. Safety is a prime concern. Enjoyment and stress relief is another prime concern. Staying healthy and enjoying life. You're trying to do all those things, I think, in gardening. And many people that like to garden understand that. Next slide. That's why. And I'm not a doctor, not even a PhD. But I have been working on this for a long time, and I've talked to a lot of doctors along the way. And if you're not sure if it's okay, talk to your doctor. If you have any limitations or physical disabilities, talk to your doctor. And we were talking before about having iodine available as a way to deal with the thorn prick. I can tell you because you don't want to let that sit for a while. You want to go and take care of it right away. You don't want to say, oh, I'll take care of that when I get through here. I can tell you that because I didn't. Got one sticking me in the back of the leg, and a few days later I had to go to the doctor's office to have that lanced and cleaned out. Be up to date on your tetanus shots. That's not my advice. That's the general advice when you're working in the garden. And some people require it if you're going to be a volunteer to keep it up to date. Every 10 years, I believe it is. Work with your doctor if you have specific issues, like I need help to really lift heavy things anymore, but I didn't when I was 50 or 55 or whatever. Stretch, warm up before gardening. That's before any real exercise, and gardening is an exercise, so stretch. The next one, I want to actually start talking about a few of the things you can do to increase well-being. What I was just talking about is mostly safety, but well-being, and I'll go back to safety in a minute. The most recent study that I was referred to in the LA Times article said sleep, diet, purpose, exercise, and socialization. Well, what we're doing right now is socialization in one sense, but getting, in fact, actively involved. It was pretty hard during the pandemic for all of us, but we figured out how to do it on Zoom, and it's not quite the same, but it helped. And people could reach out that were physically unable to get a nighttime visit to our meetings or anything else. Safety. I'm going to hit next slide. Well, the one before that. There you go. I've got a few implements here, and I'll bring them up to be in the visual next, but let me just go through them first, and then we'll run down. Okay, we'll figure out me later. Protect yourself. You're out in the rose garden, if you're working with berries, if you're working with a lemon tree, a Eureka lemon that's got big old honking thorns, get good gloves. They're worth it. I have probably 10 pairs of gloves, some of which have holes in them by now. These are relatively new. They look new. Gauntlets. These are usually rawhide or heavy-duty leather. The palms, though, you want to be flexible. Backs are a little lighter, but the palms and the fingers here are goatskin. Why goatskin? A little more expensive, but it's more penetrating, thorn penetrating resistant. And when it gets wet, it tends not to stiffen up quite as much. So these are kind of gloves I like. Any kind of gloves. Okay, so gloves, that's one thing. I don't wear glasses anymore. Just got my cataracts changed. Goggles, any kind of goggles. Or if you wear glasses, that's fine too. And I can tell you from personal experience, if you're working on something like a rose plant that has long canes and you're trying to make it do what you want to, and it comes up like this, hits you right there, it starts bleeding, which it did for me, you just realize that's an inch away from losing my eye. So goggles, a brimmed hat. Now, this isn't very good for sun protection. I have others, but some are heavier than this. This gives you sun protection, but it also will stop a whipping pain from running into your eyes. So hats, the gauntlet gloves, and heavy clothes. I don't wear shorts in the garden anymore, even if it's a hot day. And that helps to reduce the amount of thorn sticks you get. Yeah, I do a lot of roses, but I have other things too, and it's very handy. Sharpen the tools. This one I will ask you to expand, and I will show you an example. Why? It's easier on the plant. You want clean cuts in most cases. My mother, who was a florist, told me there are some things you want to crush the stem when you put it in water to last longer. most things like roses, you want it to cut clean. And I like to sharpen them, these things, to where this one I left unsharpened, and I'm not sure if it will cut paper or not, but I'll show you what I mean. This is the way I test. Fold it over, and it does cut. I had sharpened it before. Usually for every session, I'll make sure it's sharp enough. How do you sharpen it? I use a very cheap and simple sharpening tool. And I hold it like this on my bypass shears. And what I do is I sharpen the bevel side. This is flat bottom. This is a bevel on this side. And right now it's dull. I know you can't see that from the audience, but all you should have to do, now it's shining. I'm following the angle of the bevel and drawing it along. This end is a very hard material called silicon carbide. You can also use a diamond hone, but both of them will reduce the stress on the plant and on your hand. It's easier on your hand to cut things when it's that sharp. Hello, welcome. We've just gotten started. We're doing a little on safety right now. Keep it expanded for just a minute. Go back one, no, forward one. Forward one, forward, yeah, this one. You can sort of see the picture on the of sharpening tools. That happens to be a diamond hone, but it's the same idea as using a silicon carbide. I give these away to new members because they're always useful. You can also sharpen knives and things and other implements. But it's easier on you and the plants. The next slide is another safety issue. This is not a great picture, but if you see the little black spaghetti things, those are unfastened, loose drip irrigation lines. They're perfect to trip you. I'm looking ahead, oh, I'm going to prune that, and I'm walking along and not really paying attention. You've got something that, in my case, has a little stake in the end and holds it, and then you've got something to trip you. And trip hazards in general are really bad. Use garden staples, they're wire things that are U-shaped and long, and you drive them in and you put a couple of those in and you make sure it's taut. And or underneath the mulch if you have, this has mulch on the ground. Not yet. Overgrown plants. Now, I have a specific in mind. Nasturtiums in my yard decide to self-seed, and they grow all over the place. And they grow into my paths. And I'm looking ahead again at something else I want to take care of, and I'm not paying attention to the fact that in the last week, the nasturtium is in the middle of the path, and it makes a great trip hazard. So again, overgrown paths, ivy, other things that tend to take off and cover, sticks, whatever you have that you haven't cleared. And if you don't have hard packed paths, soft or uneven paths. If it's muddy, if you have mulch, if you have a grade going up. And one of the things I talk about, and I'll show in the next slide, is homemade helper rails. You don't want to spend the money to have rails. I have multiple levels on mine. I live on a creek bed, San Mosquito Creek. Back lot line is Palo Alto. And right near the old Sunset, if you know where that was. And it has slightly raised second level. So just a couple of steps. And I decided, well, I don't want to trip on the stones that I put in there. So I will add helper rails. Next slide. This is leftover pipe from when they redid my thermal solar for a pool. They left these big pipes and I said, yeah, leave them. I'll find some use for them. And I was thinking of planters, slit them and make planters out of them. And then I said, well, wait a minute, I can make a rail out of that. Very easy. You can also use things you can buy like 1-inch PVC pipe. Think of, if you have something to attach it to, you can attach it to it at one end. Or if you don't, you can make two different height posts. You can sink it in concrete, that's a little more work, or you can find a piece of rebar, drive it into the ground, put the 1 inch over it, put a elbow on it, run it out, put it on the other one, and you've got a rail. It's not like you're gonna put your whole weight on it, it's just to stabilize you as you walk. I also have 2 places where I have old ski poles. Well, with the knees going, I had to stop skiing, so I had surplus ski poles, and I took off the bottom and I put them in the ground in a couple of places where I just want just something to reach. So these are all ways to make it easier to have stabilization as you get up and down. By the way, you see a peach tree in that. I had 200 peaches on it before the squirrels got them. We can talk about that another time. But I tie it to the fence, and by heavy wire and screws and things, tie the ends and holes in the pipe. I tie it to the fence. It's enough for what I need to get up and down. Next slide. This is probably one of the biggest safety things that also provides much better for the environment, both yours and the gardens. As I said, I have 250 roses. I have 8 types of apples, 5 different apple trees, peaches, apricots, all sorts of things. And I've been trying to get beneficial insects for 30 years. Recently, I've done some additional research to find what are the best beneficials and what they go after. And I just did a talk on the 9th, recorded at Lingso, which you can find, which is down at the very bottom there. Summer Rose Care under Community Resources at Lingso. And I've done other ones on organic gardening. And organic gardening is fine. We were talking before we started about neem oil, and it's one of the things that is EPA certified for organic garden use, but apparently not OMRI certified. I didn't know that before today. And I use neem mouthwash every day. There is a thing that I found out at my dentist office. In the last couple of years, I used one specific one called neem mouthwash. And of course, they couldn't make enough money out of it because there were all these imitators, because it's been around for 2,000 years as a medicine, pharmaceutical in India. Used to be they would brush their teeth by taking a twig of the neem tree and before they had toothbrushes. So its toxicity is 1/4 that of table salt. Table salt is 4 times more toxic than neem in its pure form. That's what the hazard material says. And salt's hazard material says. But there are others that are certified for organic use. Another one that's good for more insects. Neem is good for as a fungicide, miticide, and insecticide, mild. But it's also an oil, and so it can smother insects. But I haven't used any of it this year, not a bit, with 250 roses. I have very few insect issues because I'm cultivating beneficial insects. And there's some that are better than others. And the other big thing you can do is summer pruning right now. And that's not just on roses, but on berry vines, on fruit trees, on many other things. They teach you in Master Gardeners to make what's called a sun cup in the middle of a fruit tree to let the sun, air, and light in. The circulation of air helps to reduce the problems with fungus. It also, the opening lets birds see, oh, there's insects down there, I'm going to eat them. And so opening the air and light, and for roses and things like that, getting light on the bud union can cause basal breaks. So opening the middle, more than, this is exaggerated on the bottom. You don't just make it completely open, but it's also showing something on the very bottom, a little higher. You can take out the bottom 8 to 12 inches of leaves, and then it lets more light go on the bottom and prevent some of the fungal diseases and things like rose gall and such, if you keep the bud union carefully cleared. But thin the plants to get air and light, and get those to plant in the middle so that it's exposed to the air and light. And you can also walk the garden periodically. And that's true for all the plants. Your cucumbers, lately I found I've planted some very nice Armenian cucumbers, There's nothing left of the stem. Some critter decided it was going to climb up on my place I had it being propagated, and the seedling was growing, and I just found one little tiny new leaf on the end. There are things you can do. I do have a greenhouse. Wasn't growing it in there. And I do have things that are successful, but every now and then I really have interesting discussions with critters that don't listen to me. But you can get rid of a lot of things without having to use any sprays. And another example, next slide, I think. No, let's stay on the tire one. I want to show you something first. This isn't in the presentation. This is my not patented aphid exclusion tool. Obviously, it's a water wand you can use to water things with. But the end is not. They're a local company, Foggit, Foggit, I don't own stock, wish it did, makes different types of nozzles, including the ones I use in my greenhouse to fog it a couple of times a day. This one has a fairly large opening, enough so that when you put the pressure of the water on it, it'll do over 2 gallons a minute. And that's a strong enough spray. Going from the bottom up, top down, and the bottom up again, you'll get rid of 90+%, or even up to 95 if you use one of these things, just by spraying with the strong spray of water. That's what master gardeners recommend for aphids. They usually don't kill the plant, but they grow in the beginning of the year. Another tip for reducing aphids: don't over fertilize with nitrogen at the beginning of the year. Why? You get all that nice red growth. Guess what? The aphids love to suck up the juices in that nice growth. And at this time of the year, you don't want to add too much nitrogen because you get all the nice new growth in the buds, and especially the new growth. And guess what? If it gets hot and you aren't watering enough, they will. And so that's why you cut back on nitrogen in the middle of the year. That goes into the other talk I just gave. But next slide. We're talking about exercise, and the different muscle groups get moved by stretching, and I stretch down to weed instead of kneeling down to weed usually. Because if you think about how do the people that work rice paddies in Asia do, they bend from the waist. And they don't tend to have the back problems we do if we kneel down and reach in, because you're arching your back instead of bending from the waist. Now, I'm not a physical therapist, but we had lectures from physical therapists talking about this. So stretching, trying to make sure you stretch before you garden. Moving around, you need to be able to move around, obviously, to garden. But weeding, there's some things that I didn't bring, like I'll show you in another thing, but for lifting, I did bring one of the things. And this is, many people have this. This is a lifting belt. And if you're going to move things, you want a lifting belt. But the other thing, back to this one, in the upper right-hand corner, where my image is, move my image out of the way. Well, there you go. Okay. It's a lifting belt, which I just showed you. And the other thing hardly anybody knows about. 2 people have to use it if you want to lift really heavy objects, but it actually helps you if you've got a rose bush and you're trying to grab it and it's too close to the pot edge. You can hold it out a little bit. You put it around a pot, you adjust the size, and you can lift the pot. So 2 people can lift a much heavier pot. And my gardener and I can work really big pots if we do that together. So that's an unusual thing. It's called a pot lifter. So it's purpose in life. And the lifting belt, there are a lot of designs, but this one, you wrap around and close it. It has a back support. Once you close it, you undo these and then do them really tight. And so that tightens it even more. So it's really a good support on the back. Don't overdo it. I get help from my gardener now more than I ever did when I was 30 or 40 or even 50. But don't overdo it. And lift properly. Everybody knows what you're supposed to do. Does everybody do it all the time? I don't. Oh yeah, I'm gonna bend over and lift something. Yeah, lift with your knees. Lift. The angles are shown here for a proper lift, and you keep your spine straight from the waist and do the lifting, not bending over from the waist and then doing the lift. And watch it on heavy loads. So get help if you need it. Next slide. Probably the most important things. Don't trip. And if you do, the things that we were talking about, uneven soil, mulched paths, strip lines, plants crowding the paths, and wearing sensible shoes, which I didn't talk about. Wearing sensible shoes are really important. Now, if you have any questions as we go along, you can ask them, or wait until I'm done and we can ask them. But sensible shoes, you want to not wear sandals in the garden, generally anyway. Rocks, thorns, what have you. You want to wear something that was going to protect your feet a little bit, but you also want to have good enough support so that you're not wearing, say, flip-flops. If you were just in the pool and you just say, I'm just going to take care of that rose, you're probably in for something that isn't good from the rose or the soil or whatever. And the add railings we talked about, but that's if possible on steps. So it's useful. Aids in case you are fall. Now the classic aid is the life alert, and they sell that. But these days, combination of my phone and my watch, pretty good. And for me, it's worth it. I updated my phone, I updated my watch, so it would have the latest warning, which is you're walking unevenly, you may fall. That's the most recent one I added on this watch. And it can sense it pretty well. It isn't perfect, but it sometimes thinks you fell when you just did something heavy or sudden. But that's the let me get this in. I'll show you a few tools now. And that'll be the next thing. Tools and techniques. I showed you one. Let me tell you about a few of these other things. You want to lift smart, use stable carriers. And you want to dig, prune, weed with the proper tools, and I'll show you some of those. Labor-saving items like in fertilizing. This doesn't look like a fertilizing tool, but it is. Next slide. And moving, I'll show that too. This is when I found out that the way that one of the famous rose growers, David Austin, prunes all their roses in the field. This. After that, I started pruning my shrub roses, including David Austin's and some of the other big shrub roses like Sally Holmes, which is sitting out there over the arch, with this. And it'll cut through a pretty significant, I'm not going to put my finger in there, but pretty significant cane and other hedges, obviously, but it's very good at doing a rough cut. So I shape things, and in the case of many of the shrubs, that's it. I will cut that way. Okay, here's a couple more tools to show. Yeah, I see one. I've got that one, and I also have different hose and things. I'll show them in the this. That is a wonderful hose, and I have something like that that has pointed tip as well as the straight and ruffled tips. But this helps on the speed. I literally, if you get rid of my picture for just a second, and the one in the garden there, this was taken after a little movie that we have some movies on Peninsula Rose Society YouTube that I was showing before and after pictures, 5 minutes, and these big roses had been pruned. That's the only pruning they got in that winter, a couple of years ago, with this device. And it'll go through 45 minutes or an hour of pruning. And it's really great for the big shrubs. Next slide. You can use other tools to finish. And I probably should show this. The thing I was just mentioning, Susan, is on the far left, sitting on the that one. That has the ruffled on one side, the straight on the other, and it also has a pointed on one end and a smaller end, which is nice for like a crevice in a concrete where a weed decided to grow. And I don't know if it's sold anymore. This one's 20 years, 30 years old. Then the other thing is a hula hoe, which will cut, if you have soft enough soil, whoop,
Mine's going backwards.
doesn't like me going ahead this fast. But hula hoe, you can work back and forth. It's not bad exercise, but you don't have to bend down and you can go just under the surface. And what Master Gardeners recommends these days is not pulling weeds because you disrupt the soil, but cutting them under the surface. And unfortunately, you have to do that a lot to have it really weaken or kill the plant. But that hula hoe works. And then there's something for prying that I don't have here. But notice they're all on a low cart. I have a couple of carts. This one's a low one. So when I bring a 50-pound sack of alfalfa, which is a great fertilizer and cheap, used for feeding goats and lambs and bunny rabbits, but it's a great fertilizer and it's cheap. And it has growth hormone in it, triconsanol. And I use 250 pounds a year in my garden. But when I get a 50-pound sack, I don't want to have to move that. So I have the guys load it. I haul it out onto this cart that's sitting right below the end of the SUV, and I can take it out, open it up, parcel it out, do whatever I want with it. But it saves the back. And if you lift things, instead of up into a wheelbarrow, which has one point of support when you're carrying it, I like carts. And I have another cart I'll show in a minute. The low carts are handy. The other cart I have, a neighbor borrowed it over the weekend. They were putting mulch and soil out, and it dumps. This cart dumps. I have no interest in owning stock of Gorilla carts, but they do a real good job of some of the carts. This is a Gorilla cart. The other one I have is a Gorilla cart. The adjustable rake I do have with me. And if I'm trying to do a tight spot and just get a few things right around the base of a rose, that's great. But if I'm trying to do something else, it's very handy. You can use like a regular rake. And there are other designs, but this one's pretty handy. Next slide. More tools. That's what this is. And you see above it, it's a drill that will take this shank, and it's a pretty good sized drill. It's not just a tiny little one. And this is an auger that can be used for planting bulbs, or what I use it for is I can, in 3 minutes, drill, fill, and cover 3 different holes around a rose. And that's enough to put in these time-release fertilizer in the beginning of the year. Now, I use it at the beginning of the year. Plus, phosphate in fertilizers, which is good for blooms and roots, doesn't move well in the soil column. It gets ionically, sorry, I was a chemical engineer, ionically absorbed into the soil and doesn't move in the soil well. Potassium moves well in the soil, nitrogen moves well in the soil, phosphorus does not. That's the middle. Yes?
How deep do you drill?
Well, I don't hit oil. I usually do about into the root zone, and I do 6 or 8 inches. As you withdraw it, some soil falls back in, so I try and get a little deeper than that. You can probably tell that there's soil marks up to about here, or maybe here. And it's worn off the paint down at the beginning. If you have hard pan and it hasn't had mulch on it and it's all been blown dry by a mow and blow and it's like clay, it's going to be hard getting in there. But if you've got reasonable living soil, it should drill pretty easily. And I'm going to show a picture of that drilling with a rose in a minute. But the pot lifter that I mentioned, you can see it around the pot there. And you can see there's an adjustable thing. You can't really see it very well, but the middle is an adjustable thing. So if you move it, you can get a bigger pot in there. And then two people, one on each side, can use up to two hands, and they can both lift. So they're spreading it, and they're not lifting badly. They're not leaning over and lifting up the pot. They're lifting. So that's something that's useful. The soil auger is useful. I already talked about the soil or the belt and using the legs to lift. But the fertilizing deeply is really great. You don't have to do multiple time release in the year if you don't want to. If you want it to go a little less in the summertime, when it sort of goes summer dormant on some of the roses, you don't have to fertilize too much. All I do at that point is alfalfa. You just spread it on the surface. It also acts as a partial mulch. Don't put fertilizers or mulch right next to, say, a rose or a fruit tree. You don't want the collar or the bud union to have mulch around it. That's why bacterial disease, rose gall, things like that can propagate from having no air and light and a little moisture on there. So it's not great. Next slide. This is the slide I promised you. I actually have a video of it in one of my presentations. I don't remember which one. There is the around the drip line, around a rose or any plant, where the water sheds off the leaves. That's where it drips. That's called the drip line. And around a rose, you might see it, that far out or a little further out. And I draw 3 holes about where the drip line is, because that's in the wintertime where the roots tend to go. They're watered deeply, and the roots tend to go deep, and you've got it pruned and all the leaves taken off, so that what's the growth happening then? It's the roots. In my other talk, I talk about water and the research that UC Davis has done up at Davis and down at Irvine on the Wool study on water use that talks about the ways to minimize water use. At Davis, a little warmer than here. 2 times a year is all they water for the rose garden. It's a special test garden. Now, it's a special test garden. They don't expect it to bloom much in the summertime. But some do a little bit. But it survives because they train the roots to go deep. And the right way to water is deeply and infrequently. There's more available to you if you want to watch that other thing that I did. And there's some quotes from the garden manager for the UC Davis Arboretum. And he says, basically, train the plant the first year you have it after you planted it to make deep roots. How do you do that? Summertime, cut all the leaves off. Cut it back. Don't expect blooms during the summertime. No, I need water. I'm going to go deep to find the water. And that's when you train the roots to go deep on a new plant. Doesn't work on a potted plant as well, but for heavily mulched, they use 3 to 5 inches of mulch. Heavily mulched, this is a way to get the water down. But guess what this does? Also breaks up the soil. So you don't have to wait for a gopher to give you a path to aerate the soil, which may have other problems. But this thing will actually loosen the soil around, so I make a different hole pattern every year. And 6 inches deep for typical rose. If you've got some real old ones that have been there forever and seem to do well all the time, you might go deeper as well. And I mentioned phosphorus does not move well in the soil. Next slide. There are a couple more implements. One I didn't bring because it's 18 pounds and it's really long. It's a 6-foot, excuse me. Drink water here. Well, I didn't bring it in. No problem. No problem. If it's in plastic, it's not worth it. The digging bar. And make sure the end is sharp, because what you can do with a digging bar is hard to do with a pickaxe or with a shovel. Even if you sharpen your shovel, the area of the shovel, oh, thank you. Thank you. The area of the shovel is usually pretty broad. One of the shovels I brought is called the Root Slayer. You go on Amazon, there's 6 different varieties of this. My daughter taught me this one. She has her own gig as a gardener down in Manhattan Beach. What this is it has a fairly small area, which I've actually ground to a sharper cutting edge. And it has saw, oh, I better get over here. It has, let's see, here's the best way I can say it. Saw edges on the side, and you can use 2 hands, and it's got a very solid metal thing. What this is great for is transplanting perennials, roses, digging out roots, because you can go straight down with a small area and cut the root. And the digging bar, if you sharpen the end, it's like a hatchet. So you can go straight down on the sides to open up a big area, use a shovel to dig it out afterward. You can use the digging bar to get, after you loosen things up and cut out some of the root, get underneath, say, a big rose that's been there for some years. I think I did 1 hour, I was able to pull out 3 roses. They'd only been there a couple of years, but popped them right out, got most of the roots with that. It's very handy. With a digging bar, there's a shorter one in the picture as well, about a 4 foot long. And that you can use by pounding on it with a sledgehammer to get it down lower if you want. This thing, because it has 2 hands, you think about most shovels, you're doing like this. And this one, you can use it as a pry bar and grab it with 2 hands to make it pry properly. And that's what I liked about the mechanics of this. And my daughter liked it too. I didn't show one thing about these for safety. Don't put this in your back pocket. This is a little fine thing that you can use on the cutting flowers or whatever, but you're not going to use for pruning. This is a fake Velcro. I say fake because the patent expired on the wire cut. You may not know, but most pruners these days have a little notch out the bottom. That's for cutting wire. You don't want to blunt the blade by cutting it on the main part. You want that nice and sharp. But there is a way to cut wire, and it looks remarkably like one of the ergonomic Velcros. I have one that has a rotating handle too, because my arthritis likes the rotating handle Velcro. There are lots of things. And then if you really want to prune a lot of things, this is what they use in the vineyards. People that are pruning grapevines all day. The blade is and I am going to turn it off before I start pointing too much, because this will cut your finger off really handily. And I don't want to go have it tried to reattach. They give you, it's a very expensive one. I'll warn you at the beginning. This was a Christmas present for somebody I'd shown this to, and she requested this as her Christmas present for her husband. It's about $500. But you can prune all day almost in a regular yard with this. And if you're in a vineyard, they give you 3 batteries. So you've always got a good battery. And it takes very, very light trigger finger. And then if I do this, it'll beep. And then if I keep doing it, it'll stay closed. But you can find it. It's called a wild horn. The cutting parts are Felco. They do it in conjunction with Felco. And Felco are by far the best pruners. Again, I own no stock, but I have 5 different Velcro pruners of different sizes. Anyway, so you're trying to ease the work on your hands, on your back, on your lifting by the kinds of things you're doing. Next slide. This is a picture of me I was raised on a farm in Watsonville until I was 5. This is about when I left the farm, but don't do that if you don't have to as you get older. I no longer go on my roof to clean out the gutters. I no longer get on ladders. That's an apple picking ladder. And 3 points are pretty stable, but I'm sitting there having a ball, getting up and down the ladder. I don't do that anymore. And the things you can use, and one of them is over there, shorter. But this was somebody who no longer could use it. Now that really reaches. Say I've got a big climbing rose. I can't prune the top of that thing, or I want to pick one. Just up there out of reach. This thing opens. Let me see if I can show it here better. It opens and closes down here. And there are two surfaces. The one side looks like a regular printer. The other side has a little red or orange thing and a grabber piece. So when I say there's a flower on this side, I do that, it grabs the flower and you can put it in your picking bucket. It grabs a pear or an apple or something that's high up and you don't have to reach for it. You don't have to have a telescopic. A lot of them will work just fine with that. Yes, question.
So when you're doing those,
Mhm.
and you theoretically want to prune, above the bottom, and you're using, I can't see that far away. So-
Well, that's okay. I can't either. But remember what I said about this thing? I'm not very careful with it. It's especially old and climbers. If you, the way to prune a climber, this is part of another set of series of how you do it. You can do it in a lot of ways. You want it up and over, if you're going over an arch. You can do it down and the level or pointed down. And then the dominance of the upward growth will cause things to come all through it and you'll get much better blooms. I could show you this if I were showing you pictures of my garden, because I have a number of climbers and I have a bunch of fence. And so a lot of them are done that way. Not all, but the idea with climbers, you can mow it along that structure and they'll come up maybe one or two. At each point you cut it off. You don't have to be careful. And if I do nothing but take off the hips, you may get a repeat bloom on a repeat blooming climber. If I don't cut off the hips, the rose thinks, I'm done. I'm going to seed. I'm done with my cycle this year. No more. And that's the idea of making sure I get off the hips. Recently, we took over a rose garden, Peninsula Rose Society took over a rose garden that they'd lost most of their help at the city of Redwood City. So we partnered with them and they went from 8 people to 2 people to take care of all of soccer fields and everything else. And the rose garden was in shambles. First thing I did when we got in there in September of 23 was take this thing, cut off all the hips. We got another bloom before the end of the year. It just takes 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And before it got dormant, we had another bloom. It wasn't very careful, but it's better than nothing. I can answer more questions after we're done on the roses. Let me go over a couple of the other things. Remember I was mentioning the dumping cart? This lower right is a cart that's a gorilla cart. You can turn this thing 180 degrees almost in its own wheelbase because the front wheels come right around and you can turn it around. Unfortunately, my daughter had a smaller one of these and she said, oh, Dad, you've got a bigger yard, I'll get you a bigger one. Doesn't fit down some of my paths. But other than that, it's wonderful because in the front of it, near the handle, is a little lever. And say I filled it up with soil, it dumps. You don't have to lift the whole thing up, you just dump it. And the smaller one, I'm actually looking at giving away the bigger one to somebody who owns a vineyard and getting the smaller one for myself because it's really very handy. Sitting on it are different things. A smaller one, the reaching and holding. Also, I didn't bring it, but I have some very good loppers that extend. They extend to about that long. And if I want to cut a cane or a branch this thick, I can do it. I can do it with these long loppers because it has a great mechanical advantage and long arms as well. And it can cut right through it. I keep that blade sharp too. It is not a bypass shear. All the ones up here very old Wiss one, a Corona one. I didn't bring my Felcos today, but they look just like this. They are all bypass shears. One blade bypasses the other. What I learned, and I let it corrode, was I had an old anvil pruner. The bottom blade is like that, and the blade is double beveled and chops it. They're okay for some things. My mother was a florist, and she said, you want to crush some of the leaves, woody stems, put them in the water, etc. But I don't want to smash a rose stem. I want to cut it clean. Many other stems you want to cut clean. Pruning apples and other similar things you want to cut clean. So you don't want to use that kind. But I used to keep that one and let it rust so that I could say, look what it does to this piece of paper. It doesn't cut it, literally. And look what it does to this rose. I would have pieces of rose and I would try and cut it. It would smash it before it would cut it. It eventually would cut it if you put enough strength in it. But these are all bypass. This little tiny, it looks like little scissors. And this one is very handy because it has a blunt end. I wouldn't put this in my back pocket, but I can put this in my back pocket. And I haven't, and I just happened to see, oh, there's a rose hip on this, or whatever. So different shears, leave it over just a second. Different shears, different lengths that are adjustable on these, different catchers and saws or cutters. I have both. Of course, the best citrus I have in my yard, I can't eat because it's a grapefruit, and I take statins or whatever. But it's 12 feet high. It's been around for 20 years, and I planted it, and it's a great thing. And you can buy the grapefruit for $2 at the farmer's market. I can't eat it, so I give it away. But the thing's 12 feet high. How do you prune up there? And every year it gets bigger. So I get out the long loppers and the shears and saw away, or have my gardener saw it away to keep it in bounds. My neighbor just cut it back because it was hanging over in the next door, and he didn't need any more grapefruit. But those long loppers and the saws and things like that are all useful for to extend. So you're not reaching too hard, climbing in a tree, using a ladder where you don't need to. Next slide. By the way, Dalton Lane, I'm Stu Dalton. Dalton Lane is still there in Watsonville, but now it's all strawberries. No apple trees anymore. Reversible bench. One of the earliest and best A's, and I may not get down on this one, because this one's been, I have a newer one. This one's been around so long, it's been out in the sun too much, and this now makes me, my pants legs get this blue on them, or it looks like dirt, but it's the plastic deteriorated. But I want to sit in the garden, just get up with this. I want to kneel in the garden, even with my fake knees. I can kneel on this and then get up with this. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Let me try that again so you can actually see it. This is the kneeling bench, which is also a sitting bench. And this is there are, again, numerous versions of this. Many of them have pouches on the side that you can hang your tools in. I never use them. Tend to have the clippers in my pockets or in my pouch or whatever. But the kneeling position is very helpful with the knee replacements. I can put the end of the knee where there's nothing except plastic and titanium out here and just put the weight on below the knee. And it's easy to get up with the handles. And it flips to the same position if I need it. Okay, and that's getting close to the end, but not quite. This is another aid. I literally built with a friend the very expensive raised beds because she was getting older as well. And this was really heavy redwood, probably lasts longer than either of us will last. It has gopher wire quarter-inch hardware cloth or half-inch hardware cloth on the bottom of it. The bottom soil, which was pretty hard, was worked up, and I added some gypsum and things to soften the soil or make it more penetrating. Then put this whole thing down on it, built them and tipped them over, and there are 3 of them, and then filled it with a heck of a lot of great potting soil. And it grew a broccoli head this big the first year. And it gets renewed and whatnot. But it's a great way to plant things. But the design is such you can sit on the edge. And it's the reach is such that you don't have to hurt yourself reaching too far. Roughly a 3-foot reach. And the height is roughly the height of city. This is about an 18-inch one. And the chair height is usually 16 to 22 inches. So that's how the design was done. It ended up in a Master Gardener article I did for the newsletter. But it is expensive when you use the high premium stuff. I also bought some other raised beds, but raised beds are great. I don't want to sit on the other raised beds I have because they're aluminum and they're right on the ground and they're thin and don't want to sit on them. But I can use this to sit next to them if I want. The idea is that you can plant and rotate your crops in something like this. We're getting toward the end. Next slide. And I want to say well-being. I think gardening helps with your well-being. It does mine. When I take my 200 mandarin oranges to my kids around Christmas time, they love them. When I get frustrated because my Babcock white peach, an old heirloom variety that I grew up with as a kid, got eaten by the squirrels. And I did manage to salvage about 40 apricots out of the 300 that were probably on the tree before the rats and the squirrels got them this year. They weren't all ripe completely, but they were good to eat. Didn't have enough to make jam. But the vegetables, the fruits, the apples, the eggplants, makes a great thing to help your well-being and your diet as well. You know what's gone into them, you know what's eaten what, you know that you haven't used any spray on anything. But the tomatoes are ripe when you pick them, and the berries are ripe when you pick them, and you can have all sorts of things. I've got blueberries, loganberries, huckleberries, 2 types of raspberries, thorned and thornless, 2 types of blackberries, wild and thornless. I get some of them, and the critters get some of them. But overall, I share, I guess. Plus, I do trap the rats. And occasionally a squirrel will get in there. And it's illegal to kill squirrels as a private person. Leave it at that. Organic, fresh, full of nutrients. You work and see the results. That's part of well-being in my mind. Sometimes immediately and sometimes, okay, I raise things from seed, I plant them, I grow them, I harvest them, and then I work in the things like green mulch and things at the end of the year. Beauty, and I stop and smell the roses. I've got a lot of them, and I try to produce the ones that really have fragrance. Next slide. I think it's the last safety summary. Oh, I didn't have it. Don't trip and fall. That's the biggest safety. Don't hurt yourself. Carry your phone. Use the proper tools and techniques, which I've been talking about. And easy does it. That's what I titled the first one of these things I did because I was working on ergonomics. We're a little ahead of time. I can answer any questions you have on anything, but aimed at these sorts of things will be great. You can take notes on this. I do have some copies of my card. As a consulting Rosarian and as a master Rosarian, which just means you've done it a long time, since 1988. I consult with the American Rose Society, and So there's that number and email. But I also am a master gardener, and when you send the this, I'm sorry, it's for the Master Gardeners Program. There's one more after that. If you want to use this, it's in your handout. You can get the subscribing to our monthly newsletter. It's very handy. Talks about things like this or different presentations. You can bring things into our offices. Closest one here is between Elkis Ranch, which is a ways out in the country, or the one at the other end, the Veterans Memorial Senior Center. But you're not that far from the San Francisco Botanical Gardens, and those are different dates when they're open. And you could submit questions, and if they're on roses and they can't answer them from the standard question and answer things, I probably will get them anyway. And you can follow us on the various social media. There's one more, which is references. I used the playing in the dirt, choose the right tool for the right job. I used how to lift a heavy object. I used Apple Watch to make sure I was saying the right things about what the watch can do. And I used the American Rose Society Consultant Rosarian Handbook, which has a lot you have to learn and take an open book test to become a consultant Rosarian. But that's background. That I think it. Yeah. Be happy to answer any questions either that you have online or that may have come in on the chat.
Thank you so far.
Okay.
It's very informative.
Yes.
A pole, battery powered pole trimmer. Do you recommend those or you?
I had one. I lost the charger.
Audience online, could you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Repeat the question is on pole trimmer that's battery powered. I tried to do that. I recommended it at the time. And somewhere along the line, I lost the darn charger. And I tried to get a replacement for it, and I found I would have to get something to replace it. There may be attachments for things like this, but I find that these will take care of most things, and a saw does about as well as some of the other big stuff. So I don't have a brand to recommend to you. Plus, as a master gardener, we're supposed to recommend 3 of anything, not just one. Another question.
You know, the gauntlet gloves?
Yeah.
Are there any particular ones that you might?
The question was gauntlet gloves. Anyway, I might recommend. I would recommend a description of them more than I would recommend a kind. I have several kinds. I have some called fireplace gloves. They're really stiff and hard to deal with. But when I have like a Eureka lemon that has thorns that long, and I'm trying to hold on to something and I want to work in that area, I'll wear one of these heavy duty ones. And there are a couple of roses that are like that as well, that I don't want to just touch them with these, but these, I can strip a rose. In fact, I did. When I'm doing propagation, I will strip the stems so that it doesn't, when I put it in the Burrito method uses just a piece of stem, put it in a plastic bag with something wet. And that's all you have to do for a couple of weeks, and it'll start to heal over. And then you put it in soil. You do just putting it in soil in this time of the year, or any time during, except the summer, I mean the winter, what happens is it'll dry out. The little black pots heat up. The hot weather, you forgot to water it one day and it dries out. They die. They have no roots. So what I do is I get the roots started with this technique, put them in the shade and keep them moist, maybe even bottom watering for the first little bit. And that will get a propagation started. So I strip the thorns off just by running it with this. You can also sort of rotate the thorns and strip the thorns if you need to. We can use a thorn stripper, but I don't. This is heavy enough for that. The lightest weight ones, you may want to check and see if it's going to be thorn penetrating resistant. Goatskin gloves, rawhide back is the criteria I use when I buy a new one. I saw this one, I forget where, online, and it said rose glove. This one, I don't know them. Exemplary, but I have so many different brands. If it says goatskin gloves and it says rawhide, that's what I tend to buy. Question?
It's very specific, but I have an orange tree,
Mhm.
and then suddenly it's getting shower, and then when I
The
take it
orange?
out, and then if it's more than one day, it will have some gray shape spots here and there, and then eventually it gets fungus or something like
Black
that.
mold, maybe?
Mold or.
Is it black mold or fungus?
So what should I do? I mean,
If one thing you can do is tap the leaves. If little white things fly off, what you have is white flies, which secrete a honeydew, which then the ants love to harvest, and they feed the white flies, and the white flies make more of it, and you get all this black mold on citrus. Very common.
is there any companion plant to?
Yeah, what you want, there are some things, again, the other thing I did for links, are there companion plants for it? That I just questioned. Lacewings and parasitic wasps and things like that are really good for killing the white flies. Soldier beetles, I think, are pretty good too for, and so what you want to do is grow the plants that encourage the beneficials. But you can also use an oil, and neem oil should work. But just
Neem oil is okay.
it's okay. But so is lightweight horticultural oil. It's a petroleum-based product, but it's certified for organic use. What it does is the insects have something called book lungs, and it clogs them up and they die. So the oil has that activity.
Is it bonite?
The bonite is one brand.
And then.
Horticultural oil, or that's one example.
Is a company, I have a companion plant to attract this wasp, all that is the onions,
Mhm.
and then lavenders
Lavenders are a great one.
and rosemaries.
Rosemaries are a great companion.
Lemon balms.
Lemon balms are a great one. What they do is list different types. I have a picture that isn't in this, but I used it on a presentation last week. Blown up of when I let my carrots, the whole family of carrots, which includes Queen Anne's lace and many other things. But the whole family, that's the same family for carrots. I let my carrots from last year go to seed. The seed ball was about 2 inches wide, white, with a whole bunch of little tiny blossoms on it. And what it did was attracted the little tiny parasitic wasps. That's for them is a pollinator plant. And so they get nutrition out of it. But what they do is they say, oh, my nymphs, my eggs need something to work on. So they go lay eggs on aphids and whiteflies and things like that. And those eat the host. And you get.
If I use neem oil right now, doesn't hurt these things, so.
It would be fine.
It'll be okay.
It would be okay. Also, you can use some of the ant baits that are safe enough to use, and those will reduce the amount of grooming that the ants do.
Like, just a suggestion, when you use stakes to hold down, lines, that if there's a risk of impalement for the stakes.
Mhm.
And they suggested a tennis ball with a slit to cover sharp objects, so if you do fall onto that stake, you don't impale yourself.
That's a great idea, and I don't know if you heard that about the use of a tennis ball to put over something so you don't impale yourself. If I ever use this to hold down, I don't use a vertical stake, and there's nothing sharp sticking up. It's like a U-shaped thing, big U, about that long, 4 to 6 inches long, and the top is closed. So it's on the ground or even below the surface of the mulch. So you do that periodically. It's the same thing you use to keep things like a big supply tube from tripping you. But I agree with that, the tennis ball idea.
Can I?
The master gardeners are also out there today, the plant clinic, so they can answer a lot of these questions that aren't related to the topic.
And I've been out there too, so.
Yeah. So
Be happy to
they're
answer.
right outside back.
Right then, at the, Billy Bob. I have a, monkey, to puzzle the monkey,
Little puzzle tree.
as a, there's the Billy Bob white things.
Mealy
Can it
bugs.
be removed or is okay to,
Whenever you have a question that I can't answer or people out there, they can look it up too. But you go on to the UC, as in University of California, UC, IPM, mealybugs, and the tree name. And
puzzle the monkey?
Monkey puzzle.
monkey puzzle,
Monkey.
yeah,
puzzle.
monkey puzzle tree. So you put 4 things in the search, UC,
We can write this down too.
yeah, but the point is you can put it in a search, and, almost anything. If you go to roses, IPM, there's huge, amounts of information on IPM for roses there. And I use that all the time. But I also use it for things I'm not as familiar with. I know about fruit trees, I know about veggies pretty well, but I'm not sure about monkey puzzles, so I would look it up myself.
Okay,
Yes,
Besides getting it online, all this equipment, is there like nurseries, places that you recommend?
yes, and yes, but good nurseries that have, like, I bought one of my better pears, unfortunately, I cut by accident. I cut the finger, not my finger, but the glove finger. And it was beautiful leather and everything. But that was just a good hardware store had that. And many of the things like the sharpeners, the shears, you can find at things that will sell you. Like Horizon is supplies the landscapers. And you can go to many good hardware stores. You can go to Wegmans, or you have several that are part of your listing of recommended places. They're all good. And just ask them about, now this I've not found except online, this guy. But there are other things that you will find just at regular hardware stores.
Thank you.
Mhm. I hate to think how many things I buy online, Amazon, but it's easy. We're on sale. Other questions from here? Any more from in there?
Just a thank you.
Okay, well, we're almost at the end. I'll be happy to stay after, show you things up close if you wish. But I think that's it for today, and I hope it was helpful.
Thank you.